All right, welcome in. It's the Breer Report for December the 9th. Week 14 is now in the books, and we'll start as we always do with the last thing we saw, which was the Los Angeles Chargers outlasting the Philadelphia Eagles in overtime on Monday Night Football. And we'll give you a little something on both teams. We're going to start with the team that lost. The Eagles fall to 8-5. They're still a game and a half up on the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC East. That seems to be their easiest path to the playoffs, just simply winning their division. I think there's still a good chance they do that, and it would be idiotic for me to sit here and say a team that's been to 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 years would not be dangerous in a playoff setting. Of course they would be. This isn't the same team they had last year, though. And it's very clear in what's happening on the offensive side of the ball. They may be better defensively than they were a year ago, but the offense isn't close to where they were. Last year, they were able to rely on what they had up front, and it just does not look the same as it did last year. Mekhi Becton's gone. Maybe that's a little bit of a factor. I think a bigger factor on Monday night specifically was not having Lane Johnson, who is now injured. Regardless of where the leak is and where you think the problem is, the makeup of the offense isn't the same. They turned the ball over a bunch last night. Jalen Hurts had 4 interceptions and a lost fumble. The lost fumble, of course, came after one of the interceptions and on one of the wilder plays that we've seen over the last couple of months in all of the NFL, where he threw the pick, they force a fumble, he recovers the fumble, then they fumble again, they lose the fumble, the Chargers have the ball back, and then, of course, Jalen Hurts throws the interception in overtime, which was tipped by Cam Hart. Great individual play by Cam Hart there. And Tony Jefferson winds up with the ball to secure the win for the Chargers. So they turn the ball over. Then on top of that, on paper, the running game looked okay, but there was a 52-yard touchdown run that was in there. If you take the 52-yard touchdown run from Saquon Barkley out of the equation, they were able to muster just 82 yards on 24 carries. And so this is a team right now that I think has a little bit of an identity crisis on offense. When things get hard, what can they lean on? They are in a bunch of long yardage situations. Yesterday, where they had to rely on Jalen Hurts, a big 3rd and 16 in overtime that he was able to convert. So there was some good in those sorts of situations, but I'm not sure that they have the same sort of identity that they had a year ago on offense. You can point to whatever you want to point to when it comes to that. Could be the offensive line, could be the loss of the offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. Wherever you look, that the production just isn't the same. And again, the defense may be better than it was a year ago. The defense wasn't the problem on Monday night. They held Justin Herbert, who is hurt, to a passer rating of under 60 yards. The Chargers were able to run the ball some, but I mean, it wasn't like that was completely, the run defense was completely was some sort of massive problem. So you look at where they are, they've got to lean even more into their defense now. And when I look at where they are as a team, this is about, and going to be about, I think, for the Eagles, changing the formula a little bit, trying to shorten games, being able to run the ball more consistently, staying out of long yardage on offense because of the offensive line issue. And I say issue with air quotes around it, but the offensive line issue that you have, the formula is going to have to change. And I think we've seen Nick Sirianni's ability to change that formula over the course of the year. We've seen him lean into the defense. They're going to have to do it even more so over the next month to find a way to make some noise in the playoffs. As for the Chargers, I got to give them all the credit in the world. This was Omarion Hampton's first game back. They do not have their starting 2 tackles and have not for a while. Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. Slater's missed the entire year. Alt's missed the majority of the year. This was a team that I think, we talk about identity in certain spots, felt like it had lost its identity, like it didn't have anything to lean on the offensive side of the ball. And they were just so resourceful. They used Herbert as a runner towards the end of the game, which really seemed to work. And then defensively, Jesse Minter continues to do an outstanding job. And the fact that they're 9-4, I'm not sure we're giving them enough credit for everything that they fought through this year, how they've been able to do it. Justin Herbert playing with a broken left hand is just a microcosm of everything else the Chargers have dealt with. So ton of respect to the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh's program for winning the way that they've been able to win with all the adversity that they've had to face, without question. A great coaching job by Jim Harbaugh, and a great job by the players to be resourceful when they lose major pieces like Alt, like Slater. That is not a small deal. I said earlier in the year, that would be almost like the Giants back in the day if they had lost Justin Tuck, Osi Umenyiora, and Michael Strahan all at once, right? Like you strip a team of its identity when you have a position group that's that strong and becomes that depleted. And the Chargers have found a way to do it. So credit to them. Our second topic for today, Philip Rivers worked out for the Indianapolis Colts. Not today, last night. He actually worked out for the Colts. The Colts, of course, are going through it at the quarterback position. Daniel Jones, who is already playing with a fractured fibula, has now torn his Achilles. He is out for the season. Riley Leonard is dealing with a knee issue. Anthony Richardson had orbital surgery a little earlier in the year. He's still resting his eye. They don't have a timetable on return for him. So they really need an answer at the quarterback position, and they do not have the chance to trade for somebody. Trade deadline's long gone. And so they reach way back into their past now. A lot of people in that building have background with Philip Rivers, of course. Philip Rivers was the quarterback of the Colts in 2020. So there are still some people around, the general manager, Chris Ballard, a couple of people in the locker room that have played with that were with Philip Rivers in 2020. But the key here is Shane Steichen was with him for 9 years with the Chargers. And it was in 2011 and 12. Then it was from 14 to 20. And for 4 of those years, from 2016 to 2019, Shane Steichen was his position coach. The middle of the 2019 season, Steichen became the interim offensive coordinator. Then in 2020, he was the offensive coordinator of the Chargers when Philip Rivers went to the Colts. So Steichen has a ton of experience with Philip Rivers, having coached him, having been his position coach, having been his coordinator. They speak the same language. So this makes sense from that standpoint, in that you won't have to turn things upside down to make it work for Philip Rivers coming in. The issue is that he hasn't played in 5 years. And despite what you might see in a workout, my understanding is he threw the ball really well. Like, he can still throw it. And he has been working in Alabama with NFL and college quarterbacks. Like, he has been a trainer for those guys. He's been coaching high school football, coaching his son, who's one of the top class of 2027 quarterbacks in all of America. How does he move? How can he take hits? There are a ton of questions here. It's a great story. The Colts expect to have an answer a little later this morning. It would be really interesting to see a 44-year-old quarterback coming off a 5-year layoff play. Whether or not we see it, we'll see. The Colts are still mulling it over at this hour. I think there's a decent chance it happens, but the Colts are still mulling it over at this hour. Finally, our third topic, the Kansas City Chiefs are now 6-7. In all likelihood, they'll have to win out to make the playoffs. And this, again, looks to me like a team that has just been plugging holes all year long on the offensive side of the ball. I look at it a little like I look at the Eagles. The defense isn't so much a problem. The offense, unbelievably enough, with Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback, has become the issue. And I think a lot of it is continuity. And they've been dealing with so many things over the course of the year. Now, Josh Simmons, part of that's on them. When you draft him, there was an injury issue. He's hurt again. There were off-field questions. You lost him for a stretch because of the off-field stuff. So not having Josh Simmons at left tackle, Jawan Taylor is hurt. Trey Smith is hurt. So the offensive line's got this issue. Rashee Rice, you lost 6 weeks with him early in the year. Again, that was another example of the Chiefs taking a risk in the draft and winding up paying for the risk that they took there. Like, there were questions about Rashee Rice off the field, and an off-field issue kept him off for 6 weeks earlier this year. You've just had so many moving parts on the offensive side of the ball, and that's meant leaning back on some guys that you've relied on in the past, and those guys are older and harder to rely on now. And so where are the Chiefs? I still wouldn't want to play them in the first round of the playoffs. You know, if I were one of these teams that's going to win its division and the Chiefs were to slip in with 10 wins, would I want to draw the Chiefs in the first round of the playoffs? No. I've been a big defender of the Chiefs. I've been a big believer in the Chiefs. It's time for me to step down off of that a little bit, though, because I'm not sure that they're going to be able to win 4 playoff games in a row as presently constituted. They may prove me wrong. Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest of all time. Andy Reid's one of the greatest of all time. So you don't want to doubt those people in these sorts of situations. But, I've compared them to those Patriots a lot. And the one thing I remember about those Patriots for 20 years with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick was when your reasoning for them winning a championship boiled down to, well, I never doubt Brady and Belichick. Again, that's not bad reasoning. But generally, when that was what you were looking at, and there wasn't a whole lot else to hang your hat on, that was when they wound up losing in the playoffs. And it sort of feels like that's where we are with the Chiefs now, where your reasoning is down to it's Reed and Mahomes, and that's it. And that's not a great place to be. You want to be able to win different ways when you get to January and February, as the Chiefs have gotten to February so many times over the course of the last 6 years. Appreciate you guys coming out. As always, you can leave your comments down below on YouTube. Feel free to do that. You can also get to me on my social media at Albert Breer on Twitter, at Albert R. Breer on Facebook, at Albert_Breer on Instagram. We'll see you with a mailbag here a little later in the week.